I don't think it's doomed like it was last year. You know what I mean? At running back, we saw Kamara with a high ankle sprain last year. Latavius Murray stepped up, had some really good games. To me, like you said, if you lose an Armstead or Ramczyk, do you feel comfortable going to one of those guys? Even defensive line, we're pretty deep now. I mean, I think you could lose a guy up front and it'll be fine, like we did with Rankins before. We were able to get around that. To me, offensive tackle is a little iffy when it comes to that, and another spot is linebacker. But to me, I get back to the Queen and Murray. I don't know if those are the guys.
It's easier to find a linebacker than it is to find a tackle.
It is.
I mean, you got to just look at positional value.
You can somewhat hide a linebacker. You can't hide a tackle. You know what I'm saying? We see if a tackle's getting dominated, J.J. Watt, Zach Strief, hate to bring it up, voice of the Saints, Zach Strief, but remember that game J.J. Watt versus Strief years ago with Houston? That was one of the worst displays I've ever seen. I mean, and no offense to Zach Strief, he had a nice career here, but J.J. Watt he ate his lunch, dinner, and the breakfast the next morning. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think he sacked Drew like 5 times that day. It was one of the worst, like, just mismatches of all time. That shows up. There's not a lot of games you look back, that middle linebacker really fucked that game up for us. But there could be a game where you say, hey, that tackle couldn't block that guy, and that changed everything in the offense.
I mean, some of the linebackers look pretty awful in that San Francisco game last year.
They did. But to me, I think I'm not saying it's easy to disguise, but it might be easier to disguise.
Get your quarterback hurt.
Absolutely, it could kill your run game.
You give up 35, 40 points because you can't cover the middle of the field. You can still score points, but if Drew Brees gets hurt, then your season may be shot.
I mean, Andrews Pete, look at what happened in the playoff game. Let's be real. One of probably the biggest reason we lost that playoff game was what guys like Everson Griffin did. They ate the lunch of our offensive linemen, especially interior. When Zimmer started lining those guys up inside, he started bringing his ends inside. It was a mismatch, and we saw the offense suffer because of it. So to me, a Ryan Ramczyk injury for a few weeks, or Ron Armstead injury, which is unfortunately been a characteristic of him, that could make you right there want to go say, hey, fuck it. Let's say, one of those tackles like Thomas or Wills or Wirfs or whoever falls to 24, and you have him rated as one of the top 15 players on your board. I wouldn't be shocked to see Sean Payton and company pull the trigger on one of those guys.
Yeah,
and it's not sexy, but it's smart.
If he's there, then you have to do it. I mean, there's probably little probability that they are there and probably have to move up, which I wouldn't be opposed to moving up for one of those guys. Those, like I said, you just can't find those guys. You don't find those guys often in free agency, and you look at teams like,
and when you do, you have to pay the shit out of them.
Look at what the Texans gave up.
Laramie Tunsil, absolutely good point. Yeah, they gave up what? How many picks? What, 2 firsts and a second? Was that what you told me? Yeah,
I thought it was 2
firsts as well. I didn't realize there was an extra pick in there. But that's. I mean, look. Chris is gonna hate it, but I thought Tunsil's a heck of a player, but that you mortgage your future a little bit.
Well, Chris likes the Saints taking Hurts at 24.
Wait, who's it? Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I like him, but some of the film I was watching yesterday, he rarely scans the field. He kind of is a half. He looks this way and doesn't move his head from this way. He looks that way. He takes off?
Now here's my thing about Jalen Hurts.
He did improve greatly from Alabama. So I mean, there is that he did improve greatly, and he has a really good touch on the ball.
I think he's got
his accuracy is really good. He just needs to be.
I think he's a project. He's a 2-year, 3-year
away, which maybe what the Saints want to go for.
Who I like with Jalen Hurts a lot? The team that I could just link with him right now, and I don't hate the Saints getting him, but I like using him at 24, unless Peyton just really has a hard on a mile long for him. But who I like is Indianapolis, because Jacoby Brissett's going to be coming to the end of that deal. Phillip Rivers is not a long-term option, approaching 40. You know what I mean? Jalen Hurts in Indianapolis makes a ton of sense for me. I think they have 2 second-round picks from what we were talking about last podcast. Jalen Hurts in Indianapolis, I think it's a great matchup. I don't hate on the Saints getting him, but that would have to be a trade-back situation for me. Or you have to trade up from the 3rd round on. If you say late second, Sean Payton wants to trigger, give up the next year's second, which they've done so often in previous trades.
There aren't too many people mocking him in the 1st right now.
No, he won't go. I don't know if he'll go first, but you never know. Daniel Jones. Who the fuck had Daniel Jones going that high?
I mean,
you know what I mean?
People were all over the boards on Lamar Jackson, even though he had big college tape.
Was Davenport on many mocks as a first?
People weren't saying he could be a 3rd round pick. He went at the end of the 1st. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the league.
I don't. Where do you go though? Okay, what's the weirdest? All right, if you had a certain guy, the Saints are sitting. There's a trade. The announcement comes through. I don't know how it's going to be with this virtual draft thing. If they're sitting there in the top 10, and the Saints have done something outside of Isaiah Simmons, who to me is the one guy, could it be anybody else that they would trade high for, in your opinion, in the top 10? I'm talking like 8 to 10 maybe, because we know they're not trading top 5. That's just too much value. You know, the Tua thing's got to be outside of people. That ain't happening. But let's say we're 7 to 10, 8 to 10, that area. We see Saints trade up. Comes across the screen. Saints have made a trade. You know, Sean Payton's bold. He knows he's got Drew Brees probably for 1 year. You know what I'm saying? Let's say he says, fuck it. You know, he had a few drinks that night. He beat coronavirus already. You know, he's rocking his shit. He's jamming some fucking Metallica. No telling what this dude's to, you know. He wants to roll the dice. He tells Jeff Ireland, Mickey Loomis, there's a guy I like. Is there any other player in the top 10 that you could see, besides maybe an Isaiah Simmons, that he would go chase after? That he would go balls out and thinking, hey, I got to get this guy now. He's going to be off the board in the next 6, and I want to sell out a couple future picks for him.
One of the tackles, Tristan Wirfs.
It would have to be Wirfs. Yeah. So you that high on Wirfs. That's your guy. Yeah. Huh? All right.
I mean, honestly, those guys can slip the end of the top 10 if you start seeing guys like Jordan Love go in the first. Right. You start seeing Justin Herbert, then you might see 4 quarters on the top 10.
Yeah.
Now you might start seeing some of the tackles slip.
I think you always have to have the draft come to you, you know, and that's always the thing too. You can't be too bold. You know, I think teams that are too bold get themselves in trouble. You got to let it come to you to a certain extent. I agree with what you're saying there. Let me ask you this though. All right, if there's, we still talk about wide receiver. All right, I still think that they can wait on receiver because we talk about how deep it is. I know you talk about guys like Edwards before and Jalen Reagor could fall possibly in the draft for whatever reason. Could be guys that are stellar picks later on. But do you think, is there any receiver that you think they would go ape shit over early? I mean, to me, the guy that's always stood out to me is just because of what the speed brings. To me, I see a little Brandon Cooks. I know he's a little different of a player, but I always looked at Henry Ruggs as the one guy that Peyton might. Him and Jonathan Taylor, to me, the 2 offensive players that Peyton might blow his load for. Is there anybody else or somebody, or do you feel the same about those guys? Or, I just see those 2 guys standing out to me because of what they can bring as a playmaker, to the Saints offense. And Peyton, that kind of shit gets him, warm and fuzzy.
I mean, honestly, I gotta get open. I mean, I was on the fence about this guy, and the more I watched, the more I've gotten sold recently. Jerry Jeudy, I mean, just the way
Jeudy
he gets open in the short intermediate area, he would pair up perfectly with Drew Brees' arm. And, another guy that can get open in the short area, and make something happen after he gets the ball, just kind of opens up the rest of the field for everybody. And as we've seen in the last couple of years, I mean, Michael Thomas can catch 130 balls in the regular season, but come playoffs when he's getting bracketed or, he can be taken out of the game, you need those second, third, fourth options, guys that can move the football.
As great as Thomas is, what can you do?
That's
what I'm saying. What can you do? As great as he's the best receiver in football, but what can you do when you got 3 defenders on you? Somebody else, when Traquan Smith, Ted Ginn Jr., how many times we're cursing? Look why Taysom Hill plays so much wide receiver. When your fucking backup quarterback is your second best receiver, that still tells me you could add another receiver. I love Emmanuel Sanders. I think that's a groundbreaking move this offseason. I think that's one of the best moves of any team. You also got
to take into consideration the guy is 33 and he had an Achilles injury a couple years ago.
Absolutely.
Not even a couple years ago.
And remember, you're not
end of 2008.
Draft. I know we talk about Peyton getting ballsy, and that's cool. That's fine. But you can't never draft. You're not drafting for 2020. You're drafting for the future. I mean, the guy who's going to take Taysom Hill or somebody else who takes over from Breeze, you give him the best support possible.
So we're breaking up. We're breaking up. Like,
bro, the what? We have technical difficulties or what?
Don't break up with us. We're trying to podcast.
we're gonna bring Dario, man. Do you say anything outside of y'all houses up in a minute?
It sounds amazing right here. I mean, y'all might just have to.
Who says it? Is this the dancing bear? I can't believe it.
Y'all might have to step up y'all Wi-Fi game.
It's probably my Wi-Fi. It sucks, but what my Wi-Fi does blow. But is that dancing bear saying that? Because
Dancing Bear refuses to come on this podcast.
Well, he'll watch, but he won't state that same bullshit. He don't want to state his bullshit on here about his theories. But Dancing Bear was talking about how Taysom's not an option and how Kamara should be traded.
He runs a bitch.
I want the Dancing Bear to come on here and defend himself with that, man. Because look, dude, I don't see.
Hey, we gotta zoom with your name on it.
That's right.
You got to zoom with your name on it. And Ted's going to come too.
Exactly. Let me ask you this. Is there any – let's go to that. The Kamara thing. I'm sick of the Kamara trade talk. What fucking advantage do I not see that you could get from trading Alvin Kamara before this season?
People keep bringing up the Chiefs as a great option for him to go to.
No, they don't.
Because the Saints are so locked up with salary. The Chiefs are about to give
Patrick
Mahomes
$40 million,
and they're like $300 on the salary.
They have no cap space, and they're going to have to pay the best quarterback in football for the next 8 to 10 years. They cannot afford Alvin Kamara. He is a free agent to be, people. Happening.
There's a reason why they're rolling with Damian Williams on a $4 million a year contract.
They just fucking won a Super Bowl with Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy. And McCoy just basically said he wants to play another 2 years. Not sure if that'll happen, but running backs. Why not draft a running back second, third, fourth round? Why would they give up an ample package to get Alvin Kamara, then have to turn around and pay him possibly $12 to $13 million a year over the next 5 years?
Why would they rob Peter to pay Paul when they're going to need as many cheap contracts
to go
through the draft to pay Mahomes after this year?
Obviously, Mahomes is so great, you can get away with an average running back. You don't need an Alvin Kamara.
That bill is coming. I can see that team invest more in wide receiver than running back, honestly, because that's the way their team's built.
When your quarterback play is that great, you know what I mean, and you have the rest of your team's pretty good, and you have great coaching, great offensive line play, you do not need – look, let's be real. I love Marcus Colston, all-time leading receiver for the Saints. Marcus Colston was never an elite wide receiver in the NFL. Pierre Thomas, Reggie Bush, Mike Bell, none of those guys were close to elite running backs. You know what I mean? Now Kansas City, he's got Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, pretty damn special players. But he had Damian Williams as running back. He does not need another fucking star in that offense. He is the fucking star. Mahomes can make anybody better the way Drew Brees made guys better over the years. You know what I mean? So that makes no sense to me. If Kansas City would focus on anything in this draft, it should be defense and maybe adding that one running back in the middle rounds. But Kamara makes no sense for Kansas City. I've seen the Colts. I've seen the Rams, which to me takes the fucking cake of all of them.
They fucking just learned their lesson.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. The Rams cannot, and they can't afford him, and they just released Todd Gurley, who's a year older than Kamara. I mean, 1 year older.
You'd think they would learn their lesson when they had the no doubt best running in the league, paid him, and immediately regretted that decision.
Listen,
they're not going to maybe ever again.
You're not going to get what you for Kamara. I know big thing while some people say, hey, trade him, they're scared of a holdout. Here's my thing. I don't think the leverage is on his side with the holdout. We've said it before. Look what happened to Melvin Gordon. Look what happened to Le'Veon Bell. Bell got paid, but he ended up with the fucking Jets, and he had a horrible season last year. Gordon ended up with Denver in a timeshare, didn't get nowhere near the money he fucking thought he would get. To me, it would be bad for Kamara to hold out. That's why you could still go on draft night, get a running back. At least at that point, you would have a running back host with Latavius Murray. So, hey, you know what? Fucker, hold out if you want to hold out. We're not going to sit there and break the bank to pay you right now. We want to see what you got one more year, and then we'll fucking pay you. To me, you take the leverage away from Kamara when you draft a running back. I want Kamara to stay here. I do. But it's a business. You got to do dick things once in a while. You know what I mean? If he feels affected, if they draft a running back and he says, I want out, you trade him at that point. Hopefully he put the boys on. He's that kind of player. I love Alvin Kamara. I think he's a tremendous fucking talent, and I trust him. I want him to be a Saint for his entire career if possible. But hopefully he says, fuck, I'll step my game up. I'm going to play my ass off, and I'm going to earn my next contract. And to me, that's that. You know what I mean? That's the way it should work. He shouldn't hold out, and the Saints should definitely get themselves in good position to avoid a potential fuck-up situation like that could be. You know,
he just doesn't have the leverage to hold out.
I don't think he does. No,
he doesn't have the leverage to hold out, and it might actually work out better for the Saints because right now he's incentivized to take a lower contract and not take the $16 million or push for the 16, 15, 13 million. Take the 3 years, $30 million, the 3 years, $33 million, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
take that contract in hand. An injured season, and go forward. I don't see how he can hold out, for the kind of money that some of the recent running backs getting. Christian McCaffrey operating at 95% of the snaps.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he's getting paid. He's the whole offense in the face of the franchise.
To me, that's what I'm saying.
Most of the other contracts that have been signed have turned to shit as soon as they were signed.
Well, some folks, I like Zeke. To me, I think you had I know we could get in the whole other podcast. I don't want to go that deep into it. I understood the Gurley thing. It didn't work out well. I think the Zeke thing is fine. I don't think that's their problem. I think they have other problems there in Dallas.
David Johnson
didn't work out too good. Devontae Freeman didn't work out too good. These deals are a little iffy. I'll say this. I agree with you in this regard. I think he hurt himself though by sitting out the year and going to the shittiest possible situation. But let's say this, okay? Let's agree on this.
That's another framework for why Kamara shouldn't do it.
Absolutely. Let's agree on this. 25% of these contracts, these big contracts for running backs might work out. All right, let's say that. I think we can kind of agree on that.
That's on the high end.
Well,
for big contracts.
Let's just throw that out there. That's not a. It's not
10
like
million plus.
Let's just say 25% of these contracts work out. That's not a high number. So they leverage away from Kamara. Not to mention, you just said something a little while earlier. This is a really deep draft. You got possibly 4 or 5 guys